Hey folks, we are at the Injective Policy Summit powered by the Blockchain Association. And joining me is Charlie Durkin, who is the Principal Solutions Lead at Chainlink. Charlie, great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, Charlie, lots to talk about. There's lots happening in the Chainlink ecosystem. I'd love to start with your background. Tell us about your time in TradFi and how'd you make your way to crypto?
Yeah, absolutely. So prior to joining Chainlink about a year ago, I spent a decade at Citigroup. I started my career in investment banking in debt capital markets, so had a front row seat to how issuers think about raising capital, specifically with investment grade bonds. And also with that front row seat came a look into the underlying machinery and how antiquated, I guess for lack of a better word, it can be. So moved over after 5 years into the product management team on capital markets. So transitioned from leveraging the plumbing to actually building it, and gave me great insight into how large financial institutions think about building and adopting new technology, but also why a rip and replace concept wouldn't work. And so a year ago, moved over to Chainlink as a principal solutions lead. And it's really the synthesis of those past two chapters. I sit in front of banks, asset managers, market infrastructure providers, help them adopt blockchain solutions that are reliable, scalable, and secure.
And, with that backdrop, what made you think of crypto and maybe seeing the transition to blockchain technology and Rails?
So I was first introduced back in 2017 when a client of mine announced a blockchain deal, and it was eye-opening of what is this and what is a blockchain bond? Very early days, right? It was a POC, as we know, the industry has been working through a lot over the last couple of years to prove that the rails work, but introduced me to digital assets, the team at Citi that's working on building this infrastructure, and really opened my eyes to the efficiencies that can be gained by leveraging this technology from anything from payments to securities issuance in a robust, scalable manner.
And we're seeing a lot of institutions are moving towards tokenization. Many of them are leveraging Chainlink's technology. Are they all in? They realize that we need to have a digital asset strategy and are now building?
I would say yes. We are past the point of is this a viable economic use case? Everyone is on board that instantaneous settlement and 24/7 markets make sense. And so now it's a question of how do we do that? And the missing piece that is powering tokenization now, moving from pilot to production, is really orchestration. Blockchains are great at a lot of things, but not great at communicating with systems outside of that blockchain. And so the missing piece has been orchestrating existing systems, communicating with blockchains. Tokenization isn't just it doesn't exist just solely on a blockchain. It needs to communicate with data, compliance rules, workflows that all live in legacy systems. And so leveraging a lot of the Chainlink infrastructure with Chainlink runtime environment, we're seeing institutions move from pilot to production now.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I see Chainlink popping up everywhere, even with native crypto firms, not just TradFi, and other blockchains leveraging Chainlink's technology, which in one way they're competitors, but Chainlink's technology is so great that it's being adopted by its competitors in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so if I can talk about some of the things going on at Chainlink, right? In general, we're seeing recent announcements. The DTCC with their collateral app chain is leveraging Chainlink orchestration and data standards to power 24/7 collateral mobility with near real-term pricing, leveraging Chainlink technology. And again, this is, as of yesterday, no longer pilot. This is production. We saw JP Morgan in production leverage tokenized shares to post his collateral with the CME. From a payments perspective, we're working on Project Pangea, which is 50 plus banks working to take FX settlement from T+2 to T+0. And then to your point, Robinhood's chain is leveraging Chainlink oracles and CCIP. So I think the through line is whether you are a market infrastructure provider, a bank, or a leading fintech or Web3 native, you are looking to Chainlink for the security and reliability that come with our standards.
Absolutely. And that's incredible adoption. Robinhood, DTCC, incredible stuff. And there's also CCIP. I'm seeing a lot around that, Chainlink's CCIP with Swift and other banks and things like that.
Yeah, certainly. So CCIP, when we think about the evolution of the market from a Web3 perspective, Chainlink obviously's bread and butter is data oracles. So we helped power DeFi Summer that connected data securely and reliably into blockchain. The next piece of that was connecting these disparate systems. And so CCIP is that standard that everyone is trusting to do that, again, securely, reliably, and scalably across the entire industry. And so it allows you to maintain neutrality and not have to lock into a specific chain, which is Chainlink's motto here, right? Is to maintain neutrality, and you don't have to get locked into any one standard, and you can pick and choose.
That's really great. Are you guys building any technology around AI agents, the existing services and solutions, the ability for AI agents to use those things?
Yeah, so Chainlink has been actually at the forefront of this convergence of AI and blockchain for a little while. I'll take a step back and mention that with AI coming into blockchain, the largest friction point, or I don't want to say issue, but what people are struggling with is there's no undo button on blockchains. So if you have an agent that goes and, is allowed to send real world values to some other wallet address and makes a mistake, you're not getting that back. And so how do you do this in a framework that maintains guardrails and is leveraging secure data? And so that's where Chainlink sits. It provides the data you can trust. Our compliance solutions allow you to establish frameworks and ensure that agents don't act outside of the bounds of those frameworks. And then everything is verifiable, and you have a record on chain. We have experience with this. We did Project Calm, which was our corporate actions use case with Swift and Euroclear, where you take one of the messiest parts of traditional finance. So a corporate action could be, dividend payment. These things come out in a press release that's just a PDF. And the entire market has to figure out what that means for who owns these assets. And so what this project was we took the raw PDF and, leveraging the Chainlink decentralized Oracle network, ran it through 3 different LLMs. They reached consensus on it and then put that into a standard on-chain that anybody could then use for an on-chain action item. So we've been across this now for a little while, and it's really exciting to see the market progressing towards AI and blockchain adoption.
Yeah, it's so funny. These two technologies are running in parallel, AI, blockchain, look, and robotics as well. It's a brave new world. And we have the technology like Chainlink and the blockchain rails to help manage and control, if you want to say that. It's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now let's talk a bit about what institutions are looking to do. We touch a bit on tokenization. Is that their number one priority right now? Is also stable coins? Or are they looking to do other things like DeFi as well?
Yeah, there's 2 threads. I would say there's tokenization of real world assets, and then there's figuring out the payment infrastructure. And so we hear a lot of stable coins, tokenized deposits, and which one is going to win. I'm of the camp that I don't think there will be a winner. What will need to happen for the end user is that it's all abstracted away in the back end, because someone shouldn't have to choose to use a stable coin or tokenized deposit. They just want to tap their phone and pay and have it work, right? And at the end of the day, a dollar needs to be a dollar.
Yeah.
So you need to maintain the singleness of money, and all of this everyone agrees with. It's just working on the incredibly complex legacy infrastructure that powers existing payment rails. And so a lot of my conversations with banks and asset managers these days is figuring out how to leverage both tokenized deposits and stablecoins, 2 different issuers, products that have different risk profiles and requirements under regulation. But how do you make this work for whether I'm a retail user or a corporate treasurer, that I just am able to send this 24/7, 365 and have it instantaneously settle, and I don't need to worry about whether this is a coin or deposit. And so all that being said is, in order for tokenization to really take off, you need the liquidity on chain to power that. And so it's it's not quite as sexy as some of the other headlines, right? That you'll see, vaults, perps, prediction markets, all great products, right? But in the background, everyone is hyper focused on how do we figure out payments natively settling on chain.
That absolutely makes sense, because whether it's retail or corporate, you need to figure out how we can move the value efficiently, seamlessly, and with less friction. So the tokenized deposits, to your point, like I don't see that competing with stablecoins because it's more on the corporate side or wholesale side.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gets even more complex because when a stablecoin is sent, you just have the underlying asset. But when tokenized deposits are sent from bank A to bank B, that's a balance sheet liability that needs to be transferred over. And how do you connect into the RTGS systems that power those rails? How do you ensure that this is, again, just a seamless, instantaneous transfer when there's underlying fiat that doesn't necessarily move at that same speed, whereas counterparty risk happen? All of this, though, with these banks that we're having conversations with, this is where the Chainlink runtime environment is able to allow them to have a single integration point into their legacy systems and then power an on-chain action with compliance embedded.
Now, Chainlink has a lot of solutions and services, and I'm curious, what else are you guys working on that you can share that might be on your roadmap?
So that I can share. I'll say that we're enhancing and continuing to build out the robustness of both the orchestration technology, CRE, as well as our compliance solutions, ACE. And this is another critical piece because when you think about on-chain finance, you need to ensure that obviously it was born in a permissionless environment, but if I'm a bank and I have a tokenized deposit, I need to make sure that doesn't end up in an OFAC-sanctioned wallet address. And so what our compliance solution allows you to do is maintain policies off chain so you can update them as needed based off of regulatory updates without needing to redeploy a smart contract. And I like to say that it doesn't allow for compliance to be possible. It makes non-compliance impossible on chain because you now have a smart contract executing code that says absolutely this wallet cannot own this asset.
Right. That's really great because in order to have adoption from these large institutions at a full scale, you need the compliance. You got to, be in line with the regulations and much more.
Yeah, and it's fun having these conversations too, especially with, work with front office, work with technology teams. But Chainlink also talks a lot to internal risk and compliance teams, and there's been plenty of negative headlines over different cycles within the Web3, and so there can still be a negative perception of what it means to be using blockchain, but it's exciting having these conversations because we're able to show actually what you're doing is reducing risk. You're codifying this and ensuring that a mistake can't happen because you have smart contracts executing this instead of manual workflows as it does today.
And I'm assuming with the programmability, regardless of if you're in the US, the EU, or UK, it can automatically comply to the respective regulations of the region or jurisdiction.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You're doing my job for me, actually. This compliance follows the asset around to whatever jurisdiction and can adopt that compliance regulatory requirement as needed.
And over time, I think I read an article just the other day that the US and the UK, or was it the EU, they're working on finalizing some rules about tokenized assets. So aligning over time, as these governments all align, it'll be much easier to do that programmability, right?
It certainly will. And I know there's a lot of talk around regulation, right? Whether laws will pass here in the US that will provide further clarity, pun intended, very much needed and will allow for far more robust adoption. But I will say from my seat, it's not the lack of it right now isn't preventing any of these institutions from doing the legwork, right? These financial firms think about a tech roadmap in the span of years, right? And so we're all fully aware that we'll have the regulatory clarity eventually, but there's a lot of work to do to get the internal infrastructure compatible and linked up to the blockchain ecosystem. And so when October happened last year, I think that one of the most surprising things about my job is that my conversations didn't change at all. It's like markets go up, markets go down. This is a infrastructure for efficiency and speed play, and we're going to continue marching on.
So Charlie, it's 2036. All the institutions right now are all setting up the blockchain rails. Are we seeing one market with assets on chain, movement of money behind the scenes with stablecoins and tokenized deposits, and it's all one market?
I think so. And I think that when I say one market, I want to say that for the end user. If I want to buy an asset or make a payment, that very well could be multiple chains, different standards across each chain, but the connectivity that Chainlink is working on with partners to make this one ecosystem will make that feel like one market, and everything will just be seamless and abstracted away from the end user, and all that complexity will be erased, at least for the eyes of whoever is purchasing the asset.
It's so fascinating because it's going to be a multi-chain world, and Chainlink is like the conductor in the symphony. Is all these different blockchains playing different instruments, right?
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I like that.
You can have it. No,
all
I'm
right,
just kidding.
perfect. Yeah,
Charlie, great stuff. I'm looking forward to the future updates around Chainlink and love to have you back on. But thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was fantastic.
This episode is brought to you by FortisX. Guys, let's be honest, the crypto market has been moving sideways for a while now. A lot of people are just sitting on their coins, waiting for the next big move. But while you're waiting, your crypto is just sitting in your wallet doing absolutely nothing. That's why I want to mention one of my longtime partners, FortisX. Instead of just letting your assets sit idle, you can put supported cryptocurrencies into FortisX liquidity pools and earn daily rewards while still keeping the flexibility to withdraw whenever you want. One of the reasons I've continued working with them is because they keep delivering. The team is public. They've successfully completed Cyberscope team verification, KYC, passed independent security audits, and the platform has been building consistently for years. They've focused on long-term growth, transparency, and security rather than hype. In a market like this, it makes far more sense to have your crypto working for you instead of letting it sit idle in your wallet. I've worked with FortisX for a long time, and if you're planning to hold your crypto anyway, I genuinely think it's one of the smartest ways to put those assets to work. And folks, I know security is very important to all of us as we hold our crypto assets, and they are fully audited by CertiK, and they are SEC registered and much more. So you got to check out FortisX. Go to fortisx.fi/x/thinkingcrypto. Link will be in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't as yet. If you're listening on a podcast platform such as Spotify or Apple, please follow and leave a 5-star rating. Thank you so much.